Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Baltany S4094. This watch is available from Baltany.com and Amazon.com for $204, which is €174. The watch is clearly an homage to the Rolex Datejust. Baltany also make a 36mm version, which I previously reviewed. That is the S4084 respectively. So firstly, let's look at the watch roll that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in a watch roll, which is housed inside this outer cardboard box. Good attention to detail and good design, because on the drawer inside the sleeve we have a ribbon, and you can get good purchase with your index finger and thumb on the ribbon and withdraw the drawer from the sleeve. So inside the drawer we have the watch roll, which I'll take out and show you. Very aesthetically pleasing, brown tan tone to it. Good attention to detail because the flap to it is embossed with the Baltany logo. Brass rivet which secures the strap, one undoes the strap, and inside good attention to detail because we also have this piece of vinyl or PU leather. This goes in between the caseback and also the clasp and bracelet, and it prevents the clasp from rubbing against the caseback and scuffing and scratching it when the piece is in shipping. So good to get that included. So good stitching around the perimeter, nice grain finish to it, and although it's made from vinyl or PU leather versus genuine leather, it does look aesthetically pleasing, and Baltany deserve full credit here because they could have just taken the less expensive default option of using a plastic or cardboard watch box, bearing in mind it's a low tier piece at €174, but this is good quality and aesthetically pleasing. In the base of the tray we also get another item. This cardboard envelope, which you can see is branded with Baltany in gilt. So I'll take out the items it houses and show them to you. So we have a Baltany branded microfiber polishing cloth. I always think it's a nice touch to get a branded microfiber polishing cloth, irrespective of the price point of a piece. One also gets this plastic warranty card. Now, one thing I like about Baltany is they actually fill in and stamp their warranty cards. Often low-tier Chinese brands supply warranty cards with a 12-month or 2-year international warranty, but they do not stamp them. They do not activate the warranty card from the date of purchase, and they don't fill in the retailer or the date of purchase or the serial number, for example. Baltany always stamp and fill in their warranty cards. Now, I'm pleased to report that this piece, the S4094, is covered by a 2-year international warranty, and the warranty card details the terms and conditions of the 2-year international warranty. They also give the contact email if you want to make a warranty claim, support@baltany.com. Often low-tier Chinese brands only have 12 months of international warranty, so to get 2 years of international warranty is excellent, and Baltany deserve full credit for that. One also gets this owner's instruction manual, which is bilingual. Clear, concise diagrams. The instructions are in English and also Mandarin, and they detail the operation of the movement used, which is the Seiko caliber NH35A automatic. One also gets this 1.2mm flathead Jubilee screwdriver with a hardened tool steel tip, which is replaceable, nailed shank. So the body is made from mild steel, which is nickel plated to look like stainless steel, but it's actually mild steel, which is nickel plated. Rotating nailed head, nice large chamfer on the end of it to delete the sharp tips of the knurling, and it rotates, so it's good. It fits into the palm of the hand and can rotate easily. Good quality Jubilee screwdriver, and it does suffice in resizing the Jubilee style bracelet, 1.2mm screw pins. And lastly, one also gets this Baltany branded spring bar tool with 2 rubber caps, and at one end we have a 2-prong fork for removing spring bars from the bracelet if you want to exchange it for an alternative strap. Now at the other end we have a push pin, as you can see. So good to get that included, and nice attention to detail that it's branded with Baltany. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 39mm case diameter, we have a 47.3mm lug-to-lug measurement, a thickness of 11.5mm and a lug width of 20mm. The Jubilee style bracelet tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to 16mm at the 2-button push clasp. 2-button push clasp is solid mill 316L grade stainless steel, engraved with high definition engraving. The Baltany text logo is engraved, and large mirror polished bevels which mark the transition between the brushed satin finished body and brushed satin finished flanks. Beautiful luster to the brushed satin finishing, has a nice fine grained finish, no sharp edge to the top edge or the lower edge, and the 4 corners have been deburred and chamfered well. Also the undercuts to the flanks have been deburred and chamfered very well, so no sharp edges. 4 micro adjustment holes in the flanks, which does suffice in the absence of half links in the Jubilee style bracelet. Excellent quality, and the 2 buttons are mirror polished and brushed satin finished to a flawless standard, deburred and chamfered, no sharp edges, and heavily sprung loaded. I'm pleased to see the perfection personified 20-16 taper that's often referred to in my previous reviews. That is the correct taper for a 39mm head of the piece. We have a flat sapphire crystal with clear AR coating on the underside, and the clear anti-reflective coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the silver mirror polished baton handset and silver mirror polished applied Roman numerals. So, to clarify, the 36mm version of this piece, which I previously reviewed, is the S4094. That is a scaled down version, has similar baton hands, but the thing to note is it has stick indices which are applied and mirror polished. This version, the 39mm version, the S4094, which has been scaled up in proportion, has applied Roman numerals. So it comes down to your personal taste. Do you prefer stick indices or do you prefer Roman numerals? It's subjective, but the 39 is only available with Roman applied numerals. The 36mm version is only applied with stick indices respectively. Silver sunburst dial. This piece is available in a plethora of dial options and also a two-tone golden stainless steel version, but I think of the colour options, this silver sunburst dial version is the best looking. Absolutely gorgeous silver sunburst dial. Rail track chaptering is black and nice high definition printing to the rail track chaptering. It's crisp, it's sharp. The definition of the minute ticks in the rail track chaptering are exceptional. In terms of quality of the printing of the dial execution, what we're looking at is equal to Rolex, Tudor or Omega dial finishing, and that is exceptional, and Baltany deserve credit for that. It's something they do very well to a very high standard consistently. Quality of the printing of their chapterings, the minute ticks, and also the printing of the text on the dial is sharp, it's high definition, it's crisp. It really is Rolex, Tudor and Omega level respectively. What I like about the dial is it's not over-branded with unnecessary text and specification. Often low-tier Chinese brands have a tendency to print too much information, too much specification on the dial. Especially at 6 o'clock, they'll have 3 or 4 lines of text, and really a lot of that information is unnecessary specification. For example, this piece is clean. We simply have the Baltany text logo, and then at the 12 o'clock index on the dial, we have the Baltany applied B emblem, which is very aesthetically pleasing because it complements the applied silver mirror polished Roman numerals. But at the 6 o'clock position, we have just the right amount of information. Automatic and 330 feet equals 100 m, which denotes 100 meters. Just the right amount of information. The Baltany text logo and the 2 lines of text at 6, automatic and the water resistance rating balances the dial very well. Doesn't look too busy, doesn't look too cluttered, it's minimalist, it's clean, it does look visually similar to a Datejust, which this is an homage to. We have a cyclops magnifier with the correct 2.5 times magnification, and the 2.5 times magnification is excellent. AR coating on the underside of the sapphire crystal and AR coating on the underside of the cyclops magnifier enhances the legibility. Both the single and the double Arabic numerals are clearly legible. The black Arabic numerals contrast very well with the white date wheel, and visually it does look very similar to the fonts used on Rolex Datejust pieces such as the Datejust 36 and Datejust 41 respectively. I previously reviewed the Rolex Datejust 36 and the Datejust 41, and I've previously owned a Datejust 41, and I can tell you the magnification and the quality of the printing of the font is very similar to Rolex level. So they deserve full credit for using the correct magnification of the Cyclops magnifier. For example, it's not 1.5 times or 2 times magnification. This is the correct 2.5 times. AR coating is good, and also the font is clearly legible. Proportions of the Arabic numerals are correct. The alignment is also correct. Both the singles and the doubles align correctly in the date window. They're not too far to the left or right, and they're not too high or too low in the date window. They are central. So they've got everything correct. Dial execution is excellent. Quality of the mirror polishing to the baton handset is also excellent. I'll just move the baton minute hand away from the Cyclops magnifier. You'll be able to see it better. Now, often low-tier Chinese brands have a tendency to undersize baton hands. For example, both the hour and minute baton hands will be too short and also too slender. These baton hands are correctly proportioned. The baton minute hand extends to the Roman applied numerals, which is good, and the tip of it nearly extends to the rail track chaptering, which is correct. The baton hour hand nearly extends to the applied Roman numerals. So again, they're wide enough but also long enough, and one can immediately differentiate between the longer minute hand, and also the shorter hour hand, which is correct. The needle's second hand, the tip of it nearly extends to the black minute ticks on the rail track chaptering, so again, proportions are correct. This handset does not look undersized, the handset looks correctly proportioned, and Baltany deserve credit for getting it correct. The hands do not look too large for baton hands, they do look visually very similar to a Datejust 36 or Datejust 41 handset, which is also baton handset. So I think they deserve credit for getting it right. They've used C3 patina lume on the dots around the rail track chaptering, and also the baton handset uses C3 patina. There's a perfect colour tone match. The dots of C3 Super Lume Nova on the rail track chaptering have a peach patina tone, and that peach patina tone matches on the baton hands. Subjectively, one could be critical and say, well, they haven't applied a dot of C3 Super Lume Nova at the index above the B applied emblem, but this is subjective. I think they should have applied a dot of lume. There's one missing, but however, it's not really detrimental because one can get good orientation of the dial in the dark with a missing 12 dots. So, dial is very well executed. Now, one thing I like about this piece above all else, and I want to give credit to Baltany for this, this has a very low profile Rehaut. You'll all be familiar with the problem. Often low-tier Chinese brands with NH35A powered pieces, they have very deep Rehauts. Problem with that is it doesn't look aesthetically pleasing, and the other problem is it makes the dial and the handset sunk too deep away from the underside of the sapphire crystal. This reduces legibility, it reduces clarity, but a deep Rehaut doesn't look aesthetically pleasing. Now, this Rehaut is incredibly low profile. The only other brand I've seen use a very slender Rehaut like this is Suges with the S421 Seaman, which is the Starbucks I previously reviewed. That is a Submariner Datejust Homage. That is NH35A powered, but Suges deserve credit as well because they are one of the few low-tier Chinese brands to use very slender Rehauts with NH35A powered pieces. And the NH35A is a thicker caliber, for example, than the PT5000 or the Miyota 9015, and of course it does have a taller hand stack height on the cannon pinion, so therefore it's a thicker movement with a taller hand stack height. It does need a deeper Rehaut in order to provide adequate clearance between the second hand on the top of the cannon pinion and the underside of the sapphire crystal. There is a necessity for it, but often low-tier Chinese brands such as Pagani Design with the PD1661, and another example I'll give you is the Steel Dive SD1953, which you're all familiar with. They are Submariner Datejust Homages. They have deep Rehauts, and it's not necessary to have such depth. This piece is 100 meters, which is strong specification, and the sapphire crystal therefore needs to be thick enough to provide 100 meters of hermetic seal. But however, despite being 100 meters versus 50, it does have a very low profile Rehaut. Now, the other thing I like about it is, like the Suges S421 Seaman, it has a laser engraved Rehaut, and this does look visually very similar to the laser engraving used by Rolex both on the Datejust 36 and the Datejust 41 respectively. They've also engraved in between Baltany, which is repeated, the Baltany B emblem, and the quality of the laser engraving all the way around the 360 degrees of the Rehaut is high definition. It's sharp, it's crisp, it's not thick and blurry. The legibility is excellent. The laser engraving is as sharp as on a Rolex Rehaut. They really deserve credit for this because we're not looking at a mid-tier piece at 500 to 5,000 euro here. This is a low-tier piece. So to clarify, low tier is 0 to 500 euro. At 174 euro, we're clearly at the lower end of the low tier. We're not to the upper end of the low tier, 500 euro. But this laser engraving of the Rehaut really is Rolex level. It's fantastic. So it's concentric CNC lathe tool machines, which has a nice brushed satin finish. And then they laser engrave it with very high definition fine fonts for Baltany repeated with the Baltany emblem. It's just fantastic. So I like two things about it: how low profile and slender it is, and also the quality of the laser engraving around the Rehauts. So the benefit of that is you can see the sapphire crystal sits closer to the handset and it sits closer to the dial. Therefore, the legibility and the clarity is improved. This visually looks more like a Rolex Datejust 36 or a Rolex Datejust 41 respectively, because it's characteristic of Rolex pieces. The Datejust 36 and Datejust 41 also have a very slender Rehaut. The sapphire crystal sits very close to the second hand, very close to the handset and the dial, and of course the legibility and the clarity is therefore improved. The sapphire crystal looks very close to the dial. this does look similar to it, and it's very impressive. If this had a shallow Rehaut and it was powered by the Miyota 9015, I would say it's not impressive, because of course that's a thinner caliber with a lower a lower hand stack height on the cannon pinion. It's easier to reduce the thickness of a Rehaut with a 9015, but with an NH35A it's technically more difficult. They've provided enough clearance for the second hand so it doesn't foul the underside of the sapphire crystal, but they've really reduced the clearance to the absolute minimum. This is something that Baltany are capable of, but other low-tier Chinese brands like Pagani Design and Steel Dive cannot do. So, excellent. Let's look at the bezel and case. So, fluted bezel, which visually looks very similar to the fluted bezel used on the Datejust 36 and the Datejust 41. Proportions of the flutes are correct. The mirror polishing to this fluted bezel is exceptional. To put this into perspective, there's no discernible difference between the quality of the mirror polishing to this fluted bezel and the white gold fluted bezel used on the Rolex Datejust 41. I previously reviewed the Rolex Datejust 36 and also the 41, and I've previously owned a 41, and I can tell you quality of the fluted bezel polishing on this piece is high tier level. It's fantastic. Solid stainless steel, and every facet of the flutes on the bezel are mirror polished to flawless standards. No sharp edges, no burrs, but I love the way the light reflects of it. It's very aesthetically pleasing. Flat sapphire crystal has a nice large bevel on the edge, and that catches the light. Just looks fantastic. Case is solid 316L grade stainless steel, mirror polishing to the tops of the lugs and mirror polishing to the flanks. Quality of the mirror polishing to the head of this piece is fantastic. This is high tier level finishing on a low tier piece. No flaws in the mirror polishing whatsoever. The top of the curved lugs are mirror polished to perfection. The flanks are mirror polished to perfection. No sharp edge to the undercuts to the flanks. They've been deburred and chamfered very well, and the four tips to the lugs, the corners have been deburred and chamfered. Visually, it looks very similar to the case shape of a Datejust 36 or a Datejust 41, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. The profiling of the flanks, the profiling to the undercuts. This does not look like a thick slab 316L grade stainless steel. Nice slender curved profile to the flanks. This visually looks very aesthetically pleasing, but also reduces a lot of meat and a lot of heft to the head of the piece. This piece is only 133 grams, which is excellent for a 39mm on a Jubilee style bracelet. So they've got the proportions of the case done to perfection and the finishing done to perfection. Absolutely fantastic. It's something that Baltany do consistently to a very high standard, case finishing. Let's look at the bracelet in detail. So Jubilee style bracelet with the perfection personified 20 to 16 taper, which is correct. Solid end links are a good tight fit to the head of the piece. Now you can see the profiling is correct. The tips of the lugs do extend past the end links. Now, this isn't a negative because this is an homage to the Rolex Datejust, and this is exactly how the profiling of the Datejust 36 and the Datejust 31 lugs look. They have this tip which projects beyond the curved profile of the end links in the bracelet. So actually it is correct. It does look very similar to a Datejust profile of the case and the end links. Beautiful luster to the end links, and the centre links of the end links are mirror polished to a flawless standard. So nice fine grained satin finishing. Let's check the articulation. Articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. Good amounts of pivoting beneath the tips of the lugs, rather like female poodle end links. Excellent. Doesn't have excess play, lateral, longitudinal, side to side or up and down play. Outstanding. This is an example to other low-tier Chinese brands of how to get end link execution correct. Doesn't feel sloppy, doesn't rattle, articulates freely. Fantastic. Let's check the other side for continuity. Again, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't have excess play in any direction. Perfect interference fit between the spring bar going through the hole in the end link and the holes in the end links in the bracelet. It's fantastic. Interference friction fit, smooth, articulates well. Very good. Also, the finishing is excellent. Brush satin finishing to the end links is good. Also, mirror polishing to the centre links is good. Visually, the finishing to this Jubilee style bracelet is fantastic. This is one of the best finished Jubilee style bracelets I've seen. It's definitely the best Jubilee style bracelet I've seen on a low tier piece between €0 and €500. And I'll apply the same to the 36mm version I previously reviewed, which is the S4094 respectively. That's also had fantastic finishing to the Jubilee style bracelet. Beautiful luster to the outer links. I love the way the luster catches the light. The centre links, the 3 centre links, which are mirror polished, have a flawless mirror polishing to them, and that complements the flawless mirror polishing to the flanks. The Jubilee style links are correctly proportioned. They're not too large, nice curvature to the outer profiling, and they're perfectly flat on the underside as per a Rolex Jubilee bracelet, which this is an homage to. No sharp edges to the top edge or the lower edge of the flanks. So, doesn't feel sharp, doesn't scratch the wrist, comfort level and feel good factor therefore enhanced. Doesn't pull arm hairs, which is a benefit. Let's check the articulation. Excellent. Articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, flows nicely. So, curves around the wrist very well. Let's check the other side for continuity. Again, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, flows nicely. Doesn't feel too stiff, but also it's not sloppy. This is a fantastic Jubilee style bracelet. What we're looking at here is peak Baltany. This is one of the best Baltany pieces ever made. They've got everything correct. What we're looking at here is correct decision after correct decision. Doesn't feel sloppy, doesn't rattle, doesn't pull arm hairs, doesn't have sharp edges on the top edge or the low edge, but articulates freely. They've got the balance correct, and this is the benefit of using 1.2mm screw pins versus using pins and collars, or alternatively split pin push pins, because had they used the production cost cutting measure of push pins in order to maximise profit margin per piece, this would be a sloppy Jubilee bracelet, because push pins do not give the same tight interference friction fit as 1.2mm screw pins. So excellent, nice tight bracelet, but not too tight. It's not too stiff. It articulates freely, but it doesn't rattle. It's not sloppy. Both sides feel the same. It's fantastic. This is an excellent bracelet. Let's look at the clasp in detail. So, solid milled 316L grade stainless steel clasp, 4 micro adjustment holes, correctly proportioned, nice curvature to the undercuts to the flanks. This will fit all wrist sizes. 2 buttons are heavily spring loaded, mirror polished to a good standard, opens freely. Solid mill 316L grade stainless steel internals, beautiful brush satin finishing to the top side, underside and flanks, beautiful luster to it, no sharp edges to the top edge or the lower edge of the flanks. Centre section has been deburred and chamfered, we don't have any sharp corners, and I'm pleased to see stainless steel is engraved the correct way up. I'm often critical of this because many brands actually get this incorrect. They invert or engrave stainless steel upside down, and for example I previously reviewed a Rehaut piece, the 415 ES, and both the Panda and the reverse Panda had the embarrassing error of an inverted stainless steel. It was engraved upside down, but Baltany have got it correct. It's the right way up. So let's check the hinge pins. Left hand hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, nice and tight, perfect interference fit, doesn't have excess lateral, longitudinal, side to side or up and down play. This is an example to other low-tier Chinese brands of how to get it correct. Build quality, tolerances, quality control are all excellent. Doesn't feel sloppy. Let's check the centre hinge pin. Again, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't rattle, doesn't have excess play, nice and tight. Excellent. Finally, let's check the right hand hinge pin, which is actually a spring bar. Articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't rattle, pleasant surprise. This is fantastic. All 3 pins, left hand hinge pin, centre hinge pin, right hand hinge pin, are nice and tight. Perfect interference friction fit. Again, an example to other low tier Chinese brands of how to get it correct. What we're looking at here is refinement. If I had to choose one word to describe this clasp, it would be refinement. Quality control, builds quality, tolerances, machining, finishing are all fantastic. This is an excellent solid mill clasp, snaps shut with a nice positive click. Reliable and robust. Fantastic. Right, so let's test the screw down crown execution. Solid 316L grade stainless steel crown, coin edge finished, nice large chamfer which deletes the sharp tips to the coin edge teeth. Mirror polished cap to it, and it's embossed with the Baltany B emblem to a good standard. Engraved with the Baltany B emblem to a good standard. High definition engraving. Just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus on it. Fantastic mirror polishing. The engraving doesn't feel sharp or rough. They've mirror polished it to a good standard and deburred it. But the B emblem is high definition. Nice to see a signed crown versus a sterile crown. Earlier Baltany pieces used sterile crowns, and I was critical of that, and I said it was an area that Baltany needed to upgrade or update to enhance the piece. And After watching my reviews, I'm pleased to see that Baltany have addressed this, and they now sign their crowns with a Baltany B. And the B emblem is very aesthetically pleasing because it's good continuity of design. We have the same font of Baltany B emblem used on the applied Baltany B at the 12 o'clock index on the dial. It's these kinds of features, the refinements, they enhance the piece. They really move up the quality level in the low tier between €0 and €500. Although this is €174, it's at the lower end of the low tier between 0 and 500. These kind of features, the applied B, which is mirror polished, and the high definition engraving of the same B emblem on the crown, rather than just making it sterile as a production cost cutting measure, they enhance the piece. They really move it up a level in the quality. So, excellent. Let's test the execution. Silky smooth, minimal number of turns required to unscrew it. This is sublime screw down crown execution. Perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. Now, strictly speaking, although this is a Datejust Homage, which a Datejust has 100 metres, this is a daily wear piece or a dress piece, and therefore 50 metres and a push-pull crown would have sufficed. Baltany haven't used the production cost cutting measure of a push-pull crown with 50 or 100 metres. They've used a screw-down crown, which is better. The other thing is it doesn't just provide 50 metres, which would have been acceptable. This is 100 metres of hermetic seal. So we have two rubber O-ring gaskets, one inside the crown and one inside the crown tube. And the two hermetic seals provide 100 metres of hermetic seal. Silky smooth. The threads interface perfectly. So when it's unscrewed, we're now in the manual wind position, and one can manually wind the Seiko Caliber NH35A automatic to its maximum 41-hour power reserve. Feels smooth to manually wind, doesn't feel rough or gritty, and one can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up to its maximum 41 hours, so it feels pleasant to manually wind. Pulling it out to the first click position is the quick set date complication. So when you rotate the crown anti-clockwise, the quick set date clicks over to the next day of the month. One characteristic I like about the NH35A is the heavy feeling of the quick set complication. It's got a very satisfying solid click. Each day of the month clicks over with a good heavy click. You can hear it, it's audible, but also feel it. You get that nice sensation, good solid clicking. It's reliable and robust, and that's what I like about it. It feels durable. The single and the double Arabic numerals align correctly. The font is correct, it's high definition and crisp, it's not too thick and blurry. Font looks very similar to the font used by Rolex on the Datejust 36 and 41 respectively. Both the singles and the doubles have the correct alignment and proportions. They're not too far to the left or right, or too high or too low. Legibility is good. 2.5 times magnification is excellent. Font is correct and clearly legible. And also I like the AR coating on the underside of the Cyclops magnifier, does a good job. Clarity is fantastic. Really there's no discernible difference in terms of the legibility and the clarity of the date complication with the Cyclops magnifier versus a Rolex Datejust 36 or a Rolex Datejust 41. It's the same quality, and Baltany have got it correct. So pulling it out to the second click position is the final click. We've now hacked the movement. If you look at the needle second hand, you can see it's now stopped dead, and therefore one can set the time precisely to the second with the Caliber NH35A automatic. Feels smooth clockwise and anti-clockwise when one rotates the baton hands. Doesn't feel rough or gritty, doesn't feel stiff, minimal friction, good meshing in the gearing, feels reliable and robust. Minimal backplay when you rotate the crown clockwise and anti-clockwise. There's an almost immediate response to the baton minute hand, so feels good to set the time. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and that reinstates the 100 metres of hermetic seal, and one can see the needle second hand begins to sweep around the dial at the characteristic 3 Hz sweep. Now subjectively one could be critical of the 3 Hz sweep because it has a stutter or judder to it. You'll know from my previous reviews I prefer the smoother 4 Hz sweep, such as the Rehaut 9015, because that runs at 28,800 vibrations per hour. The NH35A runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour, which is 3 Hz, and therefore one gets this characteristic stutter or judder. The one thing I'd like to see Baltany upgrade this piece with, or change, is I'd like to see them upgrade it to a Rehaut 9015, because that would make the second hand sweep at 4 Hz, which would be smoother. And of course the other benefit is it's a thinner caliber. They could reduce this from 11.5 by a millimetre down to only 10.5. 11.5 is thin for a 100 metre NH35A power piece, so I'm not critical of that, but 4Hz would be smoother, more aesthetically pleasing, but the other thing is it would be thinner by 1mm, so it would enhance the feel-good factor and comfort level even more. Let's test screwing the crown back down. Instant thread pickup. There's a perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. What I like about this crown is when you unscrew it and screw it back down, you don't have to keep rotating the crown clockwise and anti-clockwise, clockwise and anti-clockwise again several times to get the threads to mate, to get them to pick up on each other. This one works very well because the threads interface very well. They pick up, they mate instantly. And this is an example to other low-tier Chinese brands of how to get screw-down crown execution correct. It is sublime. It is silky smooth. Fantastic. Right, so let's look at the Caseback. Solid 316L grade stainless steel Caseback. It is a bubble back Caseback, but however, pleasant surprise. Just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus on it. You can see, unlike many low-tier Chinese brands using NH35A powered pieces, it's not a deep Caseback. This is a low-profile Caseback. It's nice and flat in the centre. And what I like about it is that it doesn't add too much thickness to the head of the piece. This piece is only 11.5. For example, if this were made by Pagani Design using the NH35A, it would be 13mm plus because it would have a very deep, thick bubble back Caseback. But you can see the benefit. It's nice and flat. This is the kind of flat profile Caseback I would expect to see with a 9015 powered piece or an SW200-1 powered piece, not an NH35A. 100 meters is strong specification, so it's sterile. I'm not going to be critical of it being sterile, not engraved or embossed, because this is a Datejust Homage, and the Datejust 36 and Datejust 41 respectively have sterile Casebacks, so it's Rolex style. Coin edge finishing to the circumference. It's concentric CNC lathe tool machined, and the concentric CNC lathe tool machining refracts the light, has a beautiful satin finish to it. Very smooth, very flat, very comfortable. Comfort level is good because when you wear this piece for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day, it feels smooth, doesn't feel rough, and the comfort level is therefore enhanced. The tips of the coin edge teeth around the circumference have been deburred and chamfered very well, so no sharp tips to the teeth. Solid end links are a good tight fit to the head of the piece. Now, they could further enhance this by using quick release stainless steel spring bars. They've used standard stainless steel spring bars, therefore one needs a spring bar tool. But however, I'm not going to be critical of it because it is easy to withdraw the spring bars from the end links using a spring bar tool. And although they could use quick release spring bars, that would enhance it. Quality of the finishing to the underside of the head of the piece is excellent. The undercuts to the flanks have nice large bevels, and the bevels on the undercuts to the flanks delete the sharp edge, and this is excellent because this improves the comfort level and the feel good factor. It enhances it because often with cases like this they have a sharp crisp edge on the undercuts to the flanks, and that edge on the undercuts to the flank digs into the wrist. It feels sharp, it feels rough and abrasive, and that diminishes the comfort level and the feel good factor. This piece has been deburred very well. Nice large bevels on the flanks, on the undercuts. Also the tips of the lugs have been deburred and chamfered very well. We don't have sharp corners to the tips of the lugs. Quality of the head of the piece finishing is fantastic. It's something that Baltany do consistently to a very high standard. No sharp edges to it whatsoever. So end links are a good tight fit to the head of the piece. The underside to the head of the piece is concentric CNC lathe tool machined, and the finishing is beautiful as I've detailed. Right, so I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits my 8-inch wrist. Now, I haven't sized the bracelet, and I'm pleased to report this does come with a very long bracelet. I can actually slide 2 fingers beneath the bracelet and clasp at all times. Now, bear in mind, it's on its maximum position 4 out of 4 on the micro adjustment, so therefore this is its absolute maximum, its largest size. This will fit up to a maximum 9-inch wrist size, which is good if you have a larger wrist. There are enough removable links on the 6 o'clock side and the 12 o'clock side of the Jubilee style bracelet to size this down to a minimum 6-inch wrist size. So 6 is the minimum, up to a maximum 9-inch wrist size with all the links. The thing that surprised me about this bracelet and the overall heft of the piece above all else is this is only 133 grams, even though it does have a very long Jubilee style bracelet. Anything below 150 grams is the sweet spot for comfort level to wear a piece for long periods of time. So regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7 or a 7 to 8 inch wrist, 150 and below for a 39 or 40mm head of the piece is the sweet spot. Needless to say, at 133, it's well below the 150 desirable sweet spot, and that is with a very long bracelet. Even I would remove 4 or 5 links from the Jubilee style bracelet. If you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist, you're going to be removing 8 links. If you have a 7 to 8 inch wrist, you're going to be removing 6 to 8 links. So that will reduce the heft even further to 120 to 125 grams respectively. 133 feels very well balanced. What I like about it is perfection personified taper. 20 to 16 is the perfect taper. It's the industry standard for good reason. On a 39mm, 20 to 16 cannot be beaten. It is the perfect taper. Looks good, feels good. Plenty of meat, gives a nice feeling of quality and heft, balances the head of the piece but doesn't feel too bulky as per a 22 to 18 or a 20 to 18 incorrect taper. Clasp is correctly proportioned. It's not too bulky, it's not too wide, and it's not too thick. Curvature is good, even for a smaller 6 to 7 inch wrist or a larger 7 to 8 inch wrist. It curves around the wrist very well, and of course this is the benefit of the perfection personified 20 to 16 taper, because the bracelet is only 20 at the clasp end. Therefore the clasp doesn't need to be too wide or bulky because it's only 16 at the end of the bracelet. Clasp is correctly proportioned. Looks good. Works very well, and I like the luster of it. Also the large mirror polished bevel, which marks the transition between the body and the flanks. So beautiful luster. I like it signed and not sterile, and very aesthetically pleasing. Jubilee style bracelet on this piece is fantastic, and really the truth is this does not feel or look different to a Rolex Jubilee bracelet used on the Datejust 36 or the Datejust 41. In terms of comfort level and feel good factor, it is the same as the Datejust 36 and the same as the Datejust 41. We've got that perfection personified 20 to 16 taper, which actually looks better than the taper used on the Datejust 41, and I really like it. Visually looks good, feels good, doesn't pull arm hairs, doesn't have sharp edges to the undercuts to the flanks, so when it floats up and down the wrist it doesn't catch arm hairs and it doesn't scratch the wrist. It's incredibly comfortable, so it looks good and it feels good. Now, perfection with regards to the proportions. Ironically, this is a Datejust Homage, but the actual proportions of this 39mm case are better than the Datejust 41. I previously reviewed the Datejust 36. Now that's suitable for collectors with a smaller 6 to 7 inch wrist, that's a given. The Datejust 41 is clearly intended for collectors with a larger wrist, and I owned one in my personal collection. But the truth is, the Datejust 41 looks too large for a Datejust. It doesn't look as aesthetically pleasing as a 39mm. Ironically, this is the size of head of piece I would like to see Rolex make themselves. A 39mm Datejust would be the perfect size for all wrist sizes, because 39mm fits 6 to 7 inch wrists and it fits 7 to 8 inch wrists well, all wrist sizes. And Baltany have made the correct decision, because they made a 36mm version, which I previously reviewed, the S4094. So that's particularly suitable for 6 to 7 inch wrists. But they also appreciated that collectors with a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches plus would like a larger version than the 36mm S4084. So they scaled up the dimensions or the proportions with this S4094 and made it in 39. And they have got it perfected. 39 head of the piece gives wrist presence, feels quality, has heft to it, but it is not too top heavy. It doesn't sit on top of the wrist like a thick slab of 316L grade stainless steel. This is the point. If this were Pagani design made, it would be 13mm thick, and it would sit on top of the wrist like a slab of 316L grade stainless steel, because it would have tall slab-sided flanks and a thick bubble back case back, and therefore the head of the piece would never sit and wrap around the wrist. It would sit on top of the wrist with a gap due to the bubble back case back, and the flanks would look slab-sided. Baltany have got the curvature correct. The curvature looks very similar to a Datejust 36. Also looks like the curvature of a Datejust 41. Nice curved profile to the top of the lugs, nice curved profile to the undercuts to the flanks, slender profile to the flanks. The proportions are perfected. The thing I like about it is, above all else, is only 11.5 thick. Flat sapphire crystal is the correct choice. Had they used a double dome sapphire crystal or box top hat crystal to give this a vintage aesthetic, of course it would add thickness. 11.5 with a flat sapphire crystal is fantastic. If this were Miyota 9015, I wouldn't say 11.5 Rehaut 9015 powered. I would say 11.5 wouldn't be impressive. That's nothing unusual. But this is NH35A powered, which is a thicker caliber. And often low-tier Chinese brands make Datejust Homages using the NH35A with a bubble back case back and of course slab sides, and the Rehaut is very deep, and then of course it's 13mm. And it feels top heavy like a slab of 316R grade stainless steel. This feels balanced, it's low profile. Now you'll know from my previous reviews, 13mm and below is the sweet spot to easily slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear if you wear business shirts. So needless to say, at 11.5, this is 1.5mm below the sweet spot of 13. At 11.5, needless to say, this will easily slip underneath a shirt cuff. Very low profile piece. Very well balanced piece. The head of the piece is perfectly balanced by the Perfection Personified 20-16 taper, and the clasp doesn't feel too bulky, but it's also got enough meat on it. It's not a light gauge pressed stainless steel clasp. This is a milled solid stainless steel clasp. It has enough heft on it to balance the bracelet and the head of the piece. Feel good factor of this piece is stellar. Comfort level is stellar. It's one of the most comfortable pieces I have worn. I've reviewed over 500 watches on my channel, everything from low tier to mid tier to high tier pieces, and I can tell you this is one of the most comfortable pieces I've worn. It feels invisible on wrist, it feels weightless, because they have balanced the 39mm head of the piece with the 20-16 Perfection Personified taper and the solid mill clasp. The balancing is correct. What we're not looking at is a thick slab of 316R grade stainless steel, a heavy head of the piece on a bracelet which is too light, and the taper is too thick, and there's too much meat on it, and the clasp is too bulky and too long, like a large micro adjustment clasp. They've got the proportions perfected. Head of the piece, bracelet and clasp. And it's something that so many low tier Chinese brands can't do. The bubble back, case back, the thick slab size, the depth of the Rehaut, everything is wrong. It's 13mm, and then they have this thick head of the piece. Then they get the taper wrong. It's 20-18 rather than 20-16. Then they put a large bulky micro adjustment clasp on it, which is too wide and too thick. And what you then get is the comfort level and feel good factor is diminished. It doesn't look good or feel good because we've got this heavy head of the piece, bracelet is too thick, and then the clasp is too bulky. And especially when you have a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches, you are never truly satisfied. It doesn't give the feel good factor and comfort level that you're seeking. This does satisfy every aspect. Looks good, feels good, proportions are good. It's low profile at 11.5, it's only 133 grams. Has the Perfection Personified taper, beautiful luster to the bracelets, mirror polishing is flawless. The fluted bezel catches the light, the bezel on the edge of the sapphire crystal catches the light. Silver sunburst style is fantastic, and the applied mirror polishing to the Roman numerals catches the light very well. Legibility is good. It's just fantastic. Everything about it looks good and feels good. Very comfortable piece, one of the most comfortable pieces I've worn, and feels fantastic. Right, so let's do a Lume test, and we'll see how the Lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. So this uses C3 superluminova dots on the indices and also C3 superluminova on the baton hands. However, there is one dot missing at the 12 o'clock index. I think they should add a dot, but of course they've applied the Baltany B emblem at that position. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. We're clearly looking at 5 to 6 layers on the dot indices on the rail track chaptering, and 5 to 6 layers on the baton hands. Perfect colour tone match. So, to clarify, in daylight, the patina C3 has the same peach tone on the dot indices and also the baton hands. Doesn't look lighter or darker, so they've got that right. In the dark, we've got the same green tone to the C3. Looks like vintage tritium lume, which has developed a patina or patinated, and it's good. Now, one has to be realistic. We're not looking at a dive piece with a Submariner dial layout with applied indices and Mercedes hands or snowflake hands. The problem with baton hands is they don't allow for a large area or a large plot for C3 to be applied in 5 to 6 layers. The other thing is one has to be realistic about the dots of C3 at the indices. Again, we're not looking at applied indices which are infilled with 5 to 6 layers. They've simply painted 5 to 6 layers of C3 dots, but they do work well. It's just a shame they didn't add a dot of C3 above the 12 o'clock Baltany B emblem, which effectively is the 12 o'clock index on the dial. because we don't have a 12 Roman numeral. What we have is the Baltany B. But you can see for some reason they've deleted the B. I'll just turn on the torch and you'll be able to see it better. So you can see we've got Roman numerals for the 11 Roman numerals, but then at the 12 o'clock position we don't have a Roman numeral. We have the Baltany B emblem, which is aesthetically pleasing, but for some reason they didn't add a dot of C3 on the rail track chaptering. There is enough room for it. I don't think there wouldn't be a clearance problem above the B. So I don't know why they didn't do that. That's one thing I'd like to change. I'd like to see a dot of C3 printed above the Baltany B emblem at 12. Like the other Roman numerals have a dot next to them. But that's really the only negative you can see. But symmetry of the dial is good. Now obviously it's an asymmetrical dial because we have the date complication at 3. But the baton hands have enough C3 superluminova. You can read them in the dark. And also the dots of C3 on the rail track chaptering are legible. Works good. In terms of performance, of course, it's not as good as Rolex Chromelight used on the Datejust 36 and Datejust 41, which is similar to BGW9, because they have applied stick indices and they're infilled with 6 layers of Chromelight, which is like BGW9. With dots around the rail track chaptering, you're never going to get that level of performance, but does give the aesthetic of a vintage Datejust. For example, from the 1960s or 1970s using tritium, and of course with a 36mm version. But in terms of how it looks, the patina dots around the rail track chaptering do give it a vintage aesthetic, and of course the baton hands have the same peach patina tone. So performs good. 5 to 6 layers is good. Camera struggling to autofocus on it just because it's not a large area of C3 to focus on. But in terms of potency of the exciter, it's good. There we are, we've got the camera to focus better. Colour tone match is good. Same green on the dots on the rail track chaptering, and same green tone on the baton handset. So this is 5 to 6 layers. I'm pleased to see Baltany didn't use the production cost cutting measure of 2 to 3 layers or 3 to 4 layers on the dial or the handset. Excellent. Right, so let's discuss the movement used, because it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece. So you'll all be familiar with the Seiko caliber NH35A automatic. Seiko make the NH35A in 2 plants by TMI, and TMI have a plant in Malaysia and TMI have a plant in Malaysia. Now this piece is powered by the Malaysian version of the NH35A. In terms of build quality, quality control, materials, finishing and accuracy, there's no discernible difference between the Malaysian and the Japanese made versions of the NH35A. It's been in service since 2011, so at this stage in 2025 it's a reliable, well proven workhorse Malaysian caliber. Has 24 joules, runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. Has hand binding and hacking, which work well as I've demonstrated and are useful complications. Also has a quick set date complication, which works well as I've demonstrated. 41-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable. The stated accuracy of the caliber NH35A is -20 to +40 seconds per day, so rather wide accuracy range. However, I'm pleased to report that Baltany are well regulating the NH35As they're using. This one is running consistently at +6 seconds per day. +6 is well within the stated accuracy of -20 to +40 per day. They're regulating the calibers in 5 positions to attain +6 from an NH35A. It's excellent. +6 is actually within chronometer accuracy of -4 to +6. And I would be absolutely satisfied with +6 from an NH35A. Anything between plus or -10 is acceptable, and +6 is chronometer accurate. No negatives to it whatsoever. Subjectively, one could say the only negative is that the second hand stutters or judders, but that's just a characteristic of a 3 Hz sweep one has to be mindful of. The only change I'd like to see made to this piece is upgrade it to a Miyota 9015, which is a higher grade of caliber. The 9000 series are premium grade Miyota calibers. They're a level above the NH35A in quality, finishing, materials and accuracy. That would further enhance this piece because the 9015 would give it a nice 4 Hz smooth sweep as per Rolex. The other benefit of using the 9015 is it has a lower hand stack height on the cannon pinion and it's a thinner caliber. So they could reduce the thickness of this piece by even another millimetre, slim it down from 11.5 by 1mm to 10.5, and of course then it would feel even more like a Rolex Datejust 36 or Datejust 41 respectively. It would be thinner. But however, they deserve credit because it does have a flat case back, does have a very slim Rehaut. As I've detailed, they really deserve credit for the Rehaut, which is laser engraved, because this is like a Rolex Rehaut with laser engraving of Baltany repeated, and it's very slim. The only other low tier Chinese brand I've seen with a slim Rehaut which is laser engraved to this level of quality is Suges with the S421 Seaman, which is the Starbucks homage I previously reviewed. Suges also do it with the NH35A. They have very slim Rehauts and they laser engrave with high definition engraving on the Rehaut, and they do it very well. Baltany is the only other low tier Chinese brand that can do it to that level, Suges level. And one has to appreciate this is less expensive than the Suges piece. This is €174. So it's fantastic. And honestly, this is the kind of refinement I look for with low tier Chinese pieces between €0 and €500. One doesn't see these kind of refinements at the lower end between 0 and 500. Usually it's at the upper end between 300 and 500 euro. For example, San Martin level, that's what I'm talking about, the upper end, the 300, 400 and 500 euro level. One expects to see laser engraved Rehauts with low profiling like this. But Baltany do it at a much lower price points, €174. So make no mistake, what we're looking at here is correct decision after correct decision. Excellent quality control, build quality, materials and finishing. Refinement is there because low profile slender Rehauts versus a deep Rehaut used by Pagani Design and Steel Dive and a plethora of other low tier Chinese brands. Silky smooth screw down crown. So lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meets two criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So low tier piece, price point is $204, which is €174. Yes, this is unquestionably excellent quality, and yes, it is unquestionably excellent value at €174. Make no mistake, this is the best Datejust homage money can buy for €174. It cannot be beaten. It's a stellar piece. Build quality, quality control, materials and finishing are all stellar. Above all else, the low profile slender Rehaut refines the piece. Laser engraving is fantastic. The comfort level and feel good factor of this piece are stellar. It feels weightless, it feels invisible on wrist. I've reviewed over 500 watches on my channel, including a Rolex Datejust 36 and a Rolex Datejust 41, and I've owned a Datejust 41 in my own personal collection. And I can tell you, the truth is, the comfort level of this Datejust Homage, the S4094, is equal to a Datejust 36 or a Datejust 41, which it is an homage to. But the truth is, the actual proportions are better, because this is the piece that I would like to see Rolex actually make themselves, which, as I've detailed, is ironic because they don't. They make a 36, they make a 41, but they do not make a 39. And a 39 like this would fit all wrist sizes. Now, proportions of the head of the piece are fantastic. 47.3 is just a fraction below the 48 perfect lug to lug, and this is important, which is why I've left it to last. 48 is the sweet spot. You'll know that from my previous reviews. This is only 0.7mm below the sweet spot at 47.3. The point is, this 39mm version of the Datejust Homage, the S4094, will fit all wrist sizes to perfection. 6 to 7 inch wrist, 7 to 8 inch plus, regardless. It feels balanced. Lacks heft at 133 grams, it's only 11.5. To get an NH35A powered piece, which is only 11.5, is incredible. Baltany are one of the few brands that can do it, because this is 100 meters. It doesn't have a thick bubble back case back. We're not looking at a 13mm Pagani Design piece here. This is 11.5. That is fantastic. Very low profile. This really enhances the comfort level and the feel good factor. Visually it looks fantastic because we've got that slender Rehaut like a Suges piece. It's a stellar piece, the very best of Baltany. What we're looking at is peak Baltany. This is one of the very best Baltany pieces ever made. It is the best Datejust Homage money can buy for €174. It cannot be beaten. I'm going to declare it a champagne watch for lemonade money, and I'm going to highly recommend it to you for your consideration. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Baltany S4094. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.